I want to bring in Karl Rove, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Fox News contributor. Excuse me, sorry about that, Karl. Rich was just mentioning the poll numbers. This is what ABC has. On the economy, 58% disapprove. Only 36% approve of that. You go one more, do you approve, disapprove the way the president's handling coronavirus? Back in April, he was up 33 points. Next screen, guys. He was up 33 points in April. Today, he's -2. And he's got another challenge now, Karl. How do you see it going?
Well, the numbers are bad. And as Rich said, inflation plays a big role in it. Think about this. This is where inflation was on all items in January, up 1.4% over the previous year. In October, it was up 7.5% over last year. Shelter up 4%, food 6.3%, energy up 35.6% in October over October of 2020. And in January, it was down 3.6%. It was actually deflating the cost of energy. So this is affecting a lot of people at the grocery store and at the gas pump and at the department store. And as a result, the president's in bad shape on it. And the same problem applies in a way to the whole issue of the supply chain that we're now talking about. And that is that they don't have a plan. The plan, and to the degree that they have a plan, it's a plan that's going to make the problem worse in the case of inflation, not better.
So, Karl, do you think that that might be one of the reasons that he abruptly canceled those remarks on the supply chain, or could that just be because he was not in the mood and he decided to do it at a later date?
No, I think it's part of the problem. I mean, look, what is their plan? What is their plan? This problem did not emerge last week, did not emerge this month. We had a backlog of ships out there sitting off the Los Angeles port for months and months and months. So the first question is what's your plan? But behind that, we ought to be asking, who's in charge? Is it the National Economic Council? We haven't heard from Brian Deese. Did the White House say you're in charge of this problem? Come up with a plan? Was it the Department of Transportation, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg? He took maternity leave. Now, granted, he had a right to do that, but we didn't know about it until afterwards. Normally, what would happen is if a secretary is going to take a leave like that, they would designate somebody to act in their stead during the time they were gone. The Department of Transportation, what's their plan? We haven't heard from them. Is it Treasury, Janet Yellen? She's got other things she's clearly worried about. Is it the Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo of Rhode Island? Who knows? Really, at the end of the day, here's the problem. Neither the president nor his chief of staff have decided who's in charge of this problem and who's responsible for leading an effort across the government to develop a plan.
Do you think they would ask Kamala Harris to do that job as well? Slightly kidding,
only
but
if they wanted to
I couldn't
bury
help
it.
myself.
Yeah, Karl, on that.
Only if they wanted to hear a funny laugh.
Yeah. What has this administration done well? On what topic? I don't know if you saw Tucker last night, but he thinks he's failed on public policy with regard to the vaccines. You got more deaths this year than you had a year ago. You came in the office, you had a vaccine, you had a rollout plan, you had a distribution plan in place. All of that was right there for you. What has this administration managed well?
I'd be hard pressed. I mean, because look, if you look at it, you're right. He's a little bit upside down on COVID, but the important thing to look is how far he's fallen on COVID. He started off okay on the economy. He's upside down badly. He started off okay on inflation, upside down badly. Do people think we're going in the right direction? By a margin of more than 2-1, they say no, we're off on the wrong track. So the administration has bungled this first year, and then they're going to end the year in a spectacular fashion by adding to their woes, not getting out of their problems, but adding to them. Think about it. Schumer says by the end of the year we're going to pass a budget. We're now in our third month of the fiscal year. Excuse me, as of tomorrow, the third month for our fiscal year. We don't have a budget. We got a debt ceiling. And now what do they want to do by Christmas? They want to pass the BBB plan, even though we do not even know the total true cost of the bill.
Right.
Monday, Senator John Cornyn of Texas sent a letter to the CBO and said, cost out all of those spending programs in the BBB for all 10 years rather than what they've done, which is gimmick it up by saying, well, some of these programs are going to only last for a year or two, or some of them will last for 2 or 3 or 4, but none of them none of the major ones last for all 10 years. And Cornyn said, let's not kid ourselves. No Democrat is going to, who votes for this bill is going to vote to cut these programs or allow them to die when they get sunsetted under the bill.
Can I ask you one last question, though? It has to do with the president's travel today. So he's going to travel from Washington, D.C. to Minnesota to talk about the supply chain and on the spending bills that he wants to do. But Yesterday, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, was asked if the president has considered going to Waukesha or has plans to go to Waukesha to comfort the victims' families from the rampage by Darrell Brooks. And she said there was no plans to do so because they didn't want to take away assets for first response. But there's no first response. They're not in the middle of a hurricane response, for example. What do you think about him not going?
Maybe that changes, Karl. We'll see. I mean, in the coming days or weeks. But he's flying over Wisconsin to get to Minnesota today.
Yeah. No, look, the administration's tone deaf. They're on their back feet. Once you get off of stride and get bollocksed up like they are, it's hard to get back into the right stride. But I repeat, who's in charge? Not only who's in charge of the issue of supply chain, but who's in charge of making these decisions inside the White House? Who's in charge of setting policy? Who's in charge of setting a schedule? Who's in charge of thinking these things over? The president ought to realize he's not being well served by the people around him, because we have seen now 10 months of problem after problem after problem, most of which could be avoided and much of which could have been solved or dealt with, which aren't. And again, we go back to where we started. Supply chain, when they walked into office, they knew they had a problem with the supply chain, and now they're trying to, have look like they're doing something about it. But we don't even know what they're doing, because they don't know what they're doing except giving a speech, making an appearance, meeting with a bunch of executives, and hoping that people say, well, we're working on this problem, that's sufficient for the American people. Their numbers are going to get worse, not better, as a result.
Okay. Karl, thank you.